Hello, hello, and welcome once again. J76NY here, and this is episode number 26 of our For the People playthrough on Torpor Games' Suzerain. Suzerain is a text-based political simulator where you play Anton Rain, the president of Swordland. It is different than the usual type of games I play. It's kind of relaxing to play. I don't know about how it is to watch, but what it is a, I guess you could say, choose your own adventure type of game where you are given a series of choices. Your choices affect the outcome of the story or the direction the story heads. I've made some good decisions, some bad decisions, but we are continuing on with the first term of Anton Rain. Last episode we had some pretty good news in terms of our women's rights, or gender equality, whatever you want to call it. We also got some pretty good news in terms of our healthcare. So let's see if we can keep the good vibes rolling here. I walked to the White Room with a cup of coffee in my hands. My vice president had scheduled a meeting on the current political situation. I opened the door and entered the room. Albin immediately stood up. "Good morning, Mr. President." "Good morning." This shouldn't take long. I just wanted to go over the current political climate. Mr. Hull told me he's just about finished with his plan for the economy. He said he wanted to solidify the plan before it is presented to you. He'll schedule a meeting soon to go over our options, and I hope they're good options because our economy is rock bottom. It's been rock bottom the whole time. We've been trying to pull Swordland out of kind of a recession, and we made some headway, got it back up to 2, and then it dropped back down to 1, so that's the focus of what we have on the agenda going forward. Alright, so tell him to be quick. Our administration depends on it. Simon can pull it off, I'm sure. He's never failed me before. I will be expecting good ideas and even better outcomes. Sounds like a good option to pick. Time to talk about our election prospects. There was a sharp, soft knock on the door. "I hope it's all right with you. I've invited Mr. Galad to this portion of the meeting." How are you two getting along these days? No one really seemed to be too fond of my new vice president, but hopefully they warm up to him. He's a hard man to read, but I think we've made our peace. Albin went to get the door. Lucian walked in. "Mr. President, Mr. Vice President," that's a step in the right direction. He isn't basically calling him douchebag anymore. If Lucian was still resented my choice of Vice President, he didn't show it. His tone was nothing but cordial and professional. The three of us sat down. Albin handed out a new set of documents. "Mr. Clavin, I'll let you take the lead on this." Thank you, Mr. Galad. "I've just received the results of a voter poll commissioned by Peter Vectorn shortly before his departure. Peter was my last vice president. He got involved with my secretary. Secretary turned out to be a Rumbergian spy, so I had to do something about that. It's not great, bad even. The USP stands to lose up to 20% of the vote compared to last time around. I'm not worried. We've still got time to win them over. Tell it to me straight. Do we still have a chance?" We still have a year to gain more votes, but we've got to think strategically, which presumably is why you've retained the services of your chief strategist, which is him. Do you have something to add, Lucian?" "No, pardon the interruption." Albin shuffled some pages around. "Looking at the demographics of the voters polled, you've fallen out of favor with the Conservatives. That's not a surprise. Less than half of them are likely to vote for you. The Liberal base appears divided, but you do have a considerable number of supporters there. For better or worse, you certainly aren't popular with the Nationalists. If you ever had any support from Socialists, you've completely lost it now." Well, unsurprisingly, none of the Blutish poll respondents said they were planning on voting for you. Lastly, we can't expect votes from centrists and unaffiliated voters unless we do something to win them over. What do you suggest? Lucian, what do you suggest? He smiled and bowed his head slightly. "Thank you, Mr. President. This may sound like common sense, but a convincing enough campaign can succeed where policies fail. Even if you've opted not to focus on your campaign at the moment, I'd still advise you to seize every chance for exposure that you can. I'd rather be signing bills than kissing babies. I'll take that into account, Lucian. One more thing. There is a not insignificant portion of undecided voters who don't care who occupies the Maroon Palace as long as the economy is running smoothly, which it's not. Propping up the economy just ahead of the election is a surefire way to win them over. I'm trying. It's all on Simon, then. Partly, yes. Our country seems to be stable so far, but we should avoid further crisis if we want to come out of this term strong. There is some worrying news. The Lothberg Group is up to something. My informants have been talking about frequent meetings happening between the oligarchs. This covers most of it. Well, how about more about those meetings? What are your thoughts, Mr. Vice President? I will say the liberal base is very concerned with equality. If you want their vote, you need rock-solid policies on women's rights and human rights in general. Working on it, brother, working on it. Liberals love a free market. They do. Really. So if you're anything less than full-bore capitalist, you're going to have to whip Swordland's economy into the best shape it's ever been. Swordland's lack of a free press has certainly not helped your chances with the liberals. If you really want to clinch the liberal vote, well, you could always look for an excuse to leave the USP, but that's bound to have other consequences. Yes, that would be extremely unwise. Don't worry, Lucian, I'm USP man for life. I'll keep that in mind regardless. I've just about had it with the USP. I am USP for life, I guess, even if the current USP is not exactly what I want it to be. I am the president, so I will pull them along and make them see my way of thinking. At least that's my plan. Might not work out so good, but we're going to go for it. Anyway, that's my advice for what it's worth. Thank you, Albin. Was that all for today? Yes, that's everything on my end. Hey, three of us make a good team, don't we? High fives all around. Neither Albin or Lucian responded. Yeah. I'm sitting there with my hand in the air for nothing. I left the room to attend my next meeting, which is a large expansion program presents several options to improve industrial capacity. Anything to deal with along... Oh, here we go. Read the report from Urzarin. Polio disease is controlled inside the Berger region. The Ministry of Health, Pascal Benawal, has submitted a heartening report. It states that the polio disease is controlled inside the Berger region. He stated that we had flattened the curve of infection within the Berger region, and with mandatory vaccine, it will be hard for the disease to spread. Okay, newspapers, government-imposed mandatory vaccine policy. The administration has imposed that everyone in the country has to be vaccinated against polio disease. The disease barely claimed more or less 1,000 people in Berger. Why is it necessary for the whole country to spend our hard-earned rand for something that is nowhere near us? The vaccine was free, guys. Legal immigrants from Wayland not only cause chaos in our society, also blah, blah, blah. It was free. Radical. President's decisive action stops polio in its tracks. So the radical is now my best friend, apparently. The polio disease, which was spreading wildly in Wayland, has crossed over to the Berger region. However, thanks to the administration's foresight, large quantities of vaccines have been secured, and mandatory vaccine policy was implemented to combat the sickness. The Ministry of Health, Pascal Benawal, has delivered a statement to compliment President Anton Rain on his decisive action which led to the ongoing preventative measures. So there we go. We have the praise of the radical. All right, let's get on with this. Minister Hull and Manger have prepared a massive industrial expansion plan that could cost us a lot of money. Support several key industries in the country through state investment. Swordland could become much more competitive and a hub for new industries with this initiative. Well, we have to do something. I wish it gave me a little more information, like what's the long-term benefits of each one of these. We have a lot of agriculture in our society, so I'm going to go with the agriculture. It's going to drop my budget down to a -2. But we are going to hopefully see some decent results from that. There, investments from increased trade volume. Let's read the newspaper before we go on to the next turn. Government funds the farmers and the fishers. The government today has announced a massive investment plan consisting of grants, discounted land sales, and cheap loans to incentivize and support farmers and fishers around the country to increase their productivity. The initiative, which is one of the largest the country has ever seen since the 1930s, is expected to increase agricultural production and exports to neighboring countries. Cities like Sarna and Vol'jin have high agricultural production, which will benefit a lot of other areas. We'll see massive growth in the years to come. Very good. To the next turn we go. Checkmate. Chapter 4. Okay, we are on to Chapter 4. Go see what we have to do. Read the newspaper. Hegel would take all the necessary steps. Uh-oh. In a televised address, Chancellor Emmerich Hegel claimed intensive fighting was taking place between the Agnolian forces and the locals of Helgeland, resulting in the massacre of ethnic Volgs living in the island. He portrayed the conflict as a national struggle and compared it to independent wars of the former colonies. Hegel said Volksland, as the guarantor of Helgeland security, would take all the necessary steps to prevent mass atrocities committed. Van Horten said in a television interview that Volkslandians must withdraw their harassment squad from the Markian Sea before any diplomatic talks can begin. Okay. Sign or veto the Protect Women's Act that was approved by the Grand National Assembly. This is something that we were in favor of, that we kind of pushed, so we are definitely going to sign this. The Assembly, in cooperation with the Commission on the Status of Women, has come to the conclusion that the country suffers under a high ratio of domestic violence cases. In light of these immoral conditions, the Parliament passed the following laws. Section 1 criminalizes domestic violence that occurs against women. Subsection 1 of Section 1 creates a newly established witness protection program for the abuse of women. We are just spending money we do not have, but Anton Rain is a man of the people and a man of the women, so we will gladly go into debt to help the women, especially if it gets us reelected. End of day at home. It was raining as Serge dropped me off at home after yet another grueling day of work. A guard held an umbrella over my head as I walked from the car to my front door. Inside, the house was completely dark. I flipped on the light in the kitchen to find a note from Monica. Kira had called her in for a last-minute women's rights meeting. She dropped Deanna off at a friend's and left me some food for reheating. I took the pot out of the fridge. It was filled with an unidentifiable grayish-looking stew. Evidently, Monica's excellent cooking had been the first casualty of her political career. Okay, I'll reheat the stew. While it was heating up, I went to the living room to fix myself a drink. Suddenly, the phone rang. I went back to the kitchen and answered it. Frank's voice was on the other end. That's my son, Frank. He's in college. Oh, I thought Mom would pick up. She's off on her ladies' crusade as usual. Your mother works harder than I do these days. Sorry you're stuck with your old man. Hello to you too, Frank. All right, Deanna's going to have a fit if she gets rid of the girls' handicraft classes. There was a long silence. I got that record you sent me. Not bad for old folks music. Peter thought you might like it. Well, just leave Peter out of my conversations with my son. How's Uncle Peter doing? I guess we won't leave Peter out of my conversation with my son. Do you even know what he did? I haven't heard from him since the press conference. I don't know. I don't care. Same as ever. He and Evelyn are divorcing. Same as ever. We'll just leave it at that. Say hi to him for me. Okay. How's school, son? Fine. Better than fine. I've actually started seeing someone. Really? What's she look like? Is she a looker? When can I meet her? Are you sure you want to? She's bludish. Oh boy. Drama, drama, drama. I'm surprised she'd be interested in the president's son. What? You cannot see her? So what? I've got nothing against the Bloods. We'll just say that. Seems I haven't exactly been a buddy to the Bloods. She knows kids aren't just extension of their parents. A lesson you should try learning sometime. What is that supposed to mean? She told me a bit about what her family's going through back in Bergia. Dad, you have to stop this. She's got you henpacked already, I see. Whipped, boy, you're whipped! I'll make sure her family is protected. I'm doing my best, son, but the militants are making it hard for us. You really don't get it, do you? Maybe I'll bring her over for dinner next week. Maybe once you meet her, you'll understand the harm you're doing. I suddenly became aware of a pesky smell, a smoky smell, coming from the kitchen. My dinner was burning. I have to go. Try calling your mother tomorrow. Good catching up with you, Frank. It's dinner time for me. Yeah, okay, bye, Dad. We both hung up. I raced to the stove and turned off the burner. The bottom of the pot was charred, but part of the mystery stew was still salvageable. I ate alone by the flickering light of the television, wondering when Monica and Deanna would get home. Okay. So we have a lot to look into now. There's just stuff all over the place. And a lot of newspaper articles to read. See what this main thing is first. Human Dignity Bill. Alright. We're going to spend more money on the Human Dignity Bill, apparently. The newly proposed bill will amend Section 3 of the 1923 Legal Transactions Act that allowed the legislation of transactions which occur in non-registered businesses or other entities like single persons if the party delivered accurate documentation to the financial authority. This created a legal loophole for prostitution. The Human Dignity Bill will protect common decency and prevent the violence of moral principles that occur in the act of prostitution by making it illegal offense in which perpetrators are punished by law. Our economy went up to 2, despite the fact that we have a deficit of 3. So I'm going to sign this and make hooking illegal. There we go. Alright, there's a lot of stuff to do, a lot of newspapers to read, so the Whole Sword Post has gone berserk. Traditional values are Swordish law. President Reign has signed the Human Dignity Bill protecting common decency in Swordland. Prostitution will now be punishable by law. The Assembly should be applauded for its strong moral backbone in signing the bill. USP conservatives try to obstruct administration. Sources from within the Grand National Assembly have informed us that the conservative wing of the USP seem to be intentionally obstructing President Rain's agenda. From failing to attend committee meetings to delaying bills that the president has attempted to push through, Gloria Torre and her fellow conservatives have no apparent motive other than blocking Rain at every turn. This is bad press for them. Torre and the president are known to have clashed over the latter's constitutional reforms. Could that have prompted her vindicative attitude? Or the fact that I snubbed her for vice president? Election campaign ramps up across Swordland. The election campaigning efforts have started to pick up speed across Swordland. To become the 5th president of Swordland, the candidates began delivering their speeches at rallies if the majority of the city's grand opening of Morna Port. Oh, the port's done. With the construction of Morna Port, the weight has been lifted off the port of Conriat. The flow of goods is expected to pour out towards Holsword faster than ever via Morna Port. The president's decision has propelled Holsword and the Lauren region out of the recession. Sweet! Economic improvement. Ladies' bill struck down. Women's Liberation Act. Wow. Families in Swordland can breathe easier. This bill, which would have upended Swordish traditional values by forcing undue burden on women in the name of equality, was supported by the president but was struck down in the assembly. Showing Anton Rain who wears the trousers in the government. Gloria Torre. Swordland Today. Former VP steps back from public life. Former Vice President Peter Vectern has not been seen in public in months since his affair with the Rumburgian spy was made public. President Rain quickly ousted the VP from his party once the affair was discovered and replaced him with the new VP. Vectern reportedly left Holsword for a change of scenery following the scandal, but those still close to the former VP claim that they have not been able to reach him. Hope he's okay. He's still my friend. Protect Women's Act sign. And a massive step forward for Swordland's women. Domestic violence became... Now, why would they pass a bill and then shoot down my own bill? I mean, it's blazingly obvious that they're doing this for political reasons, which hopefully reflects on them poorly, because I don't like them, and I don't want them in my party anymore. My party's got to move forward. So, Swordish debt causes credit downgrade. The credit rating of Swordland has been downgraded after a massive report on government deficit has surfaced from the Ministry of Economy, foreign rating agency. The widening government budget and the borrowing, which is leading Swordland into debt spiral, blah, 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 blah. Foreign investment in Swordish Wren is down. But we did good with that money, so let's take a look around and see what we have to deal with out in the countryside. Okay, where to get started here? Had to pause there for a second. Actually, it's more like half hour, but whatever. Start with some good news. The Morna Seaport has opened to international sea traffic. Swordish ships are now traveling to 40 destinations worldwide and offer cheap sea travel from distant continents like Rica and Xena, huh? The disconnected Lauren region is set to benefit from the influx of goods and people. More jobs have been created as a result of the port activity. Good news there. We are putting an end to all propaganda stories about Tarkin Sol across all school and university in Gen. Sol's pictures have been confiscated with heavy resistance from citizens requiring drastic measures be enacted. Not sure if that's good or bad. Okay, Fair Trade Commission creates trade regulations. The Fair Trade Commission has begun work in assessing the existing trade irregularities and unfairness. The first act of the Commission will be to create new trade regulations to balance import and export differences to ensure local competition can remain strong. Oh, there's another one. Debt crisis shocks the economy. Well, not a surprise. The central bank and the Ministry of Economy are tackling the extensive damage caused by the debt crisis and the subsequent credit rating downgrade of Swordland. Both entities are resorting to all sorts of currency and economic control measures to stabilize the volatility triggered by the events. Not necessarily good. Thought there was some. There it is. Since the deployment of the police force to combat the unrest, many attacks have occurred in remote cities. Ambushes are rampant, and the security forces are being pushed back. Police stations and patrols were the main targets of the militants. Unless reinforcements are provided, the current force are not enough to control the situation. That's definitely not good. And then we've got the discussion of the current internal affairs. Storm was on the horizon outside my window. The inside of my office, however, was very warm and cozy. I straightened myself on the sofa next to the fireplace and looked at Monsoon, who was sitting on the couch across from me. He was here representing all 8 Bludish members of the Assembly. He had dark creases under his eyes from lack of sleep. As I said earlier, we've been working on this bill for a long time, Mr. President. I've always done my best to represent my people, only to keep getting blocked in the Assembly. We can't have that same happen again. I've always brought my people's concerns to the Assembly and raised my voice whenever our rights were in question. All we ask is that the Assembly at least have a proper discussion, but all that we get is disrespect. MPs shouting racial slurs at us, not allowing us to speak. It's not only the National Front, it's the USP. I don't even remember a time when Mrs. Tory allowed me to finish a speech. The Assembly does not take us independents seriously, and you, Mr. President, have approved anti-Bludish policies. I know or want to believe that you only did this to appease your base. I'm here to ask you to reconsider your stance. We can make a difference in Swordland together. That's kind of the way I'm going, but I'm not really sure if aligning myself with someone who only has a few seats in the Assembly is a good idea, but we are trying to win over the independents, and this may be a way to do it. Let's see. What makes you think I only had political reasons? I don't believe I've done anything against the Bludish people. Can't say that. It's true that I have some regrets over my actions, but how can I help you? Okay? We should start by undoing your regrets, Mr. President. You were not only silent about the racism in this country, you enabled it. And you effectively removed our language in Swordland, first from religion, then from schools. That I'm not really sure I'm willing to go back on. What are these laws if not an attempt at cultural genocide? It is time to undo these mistakes, Mr. President. What are you asking me to do? We have a proposal to give amnesty to those who were falsely arrested for having ties to the Democratic Bludish Freedom Party. Pass it as a decree. You don't need the Assembly. And let us independents form a commission for minority rights. Okay, I'll do it. Thank you, Mr. President. He rose and walked up to me. He extended a hand. This means a lot, thank you. We shook hands. Suddenly we heard a knock at the door and Lucian entered. Sir, I'm sorry, I thought your meeting was over. Mr. President has already decided. We can call it over, Mr. Galad. I was already leaving. Great, then we must go to the meeting room, sir. One of our new campaign advisors has some plans for the election. He's waiting for us. Let's go! Oh. How much money this is going to cost me. Well, let's see what the newspapers have to say. Rich and Standard rates Swordland D-. That's about our credit rating. It could have very negative consequences going forward. Downgrade the rating of Swordland from B- to D- while warning of further reductions if the government borrowing isn't reduced drastically in the next year. The warning has led to many investors in Swordish government bonds to panic and hold their upcoming purchases for the 5-year bonds. The Ministry of Economy and Central Bank quickly urged calm and highlighted efforts to maintain stability. Markets did not recover, however, and the question of raising interest rates significantly on 5- and 10-year government bonds is now becoming a reality. Swordland finds itself between a rock and a hard place. Bogsland blockades Helgeland. These guys are always at each other's throat. Now, I know I did blah, blah, blah my way through one of the past articles on the debt crisis. Don't take that as I'm not taking this seriously. But I do believe that you kind of have to spend the money at some point, even if it puts you in debt, because in the long run, it's going to benefit the whole of Swordland. I just not really sure if President Rain is going to be around to see it. So let's pass some more laws, I guess. Hey, here we go. We're going to tax the shit out of things and make some money. The Assembly proposes an amendment to Section 6 of the Tax Code of 1949. The FLTA seeks to improve the fairness of the taxation system and increase tax revenues. Section 1 sets a 15% tax, which will be imposed on items of the luxury good class determined by the Ministry of Economy. This goes against my free market tendencies, but I can't let this -4 go on forever, so I may have to bite the bullet and start taxing. There we go. There's some more taxes for you. We're still going to be in debt, but it's only going to be 1. The GNA proposed the ATA to socially deter the excessive amount of alcohol consumption that has arisen in the general populace and to increase tax revenues. Section 1 will impose a 20% tax on the sale of all alcohol products sold in the country. Section 2 makes local alcohol production that is destined for export exempt from taxation. Section 3 establishes a 25% import tax on foreign alcohol products which come from countries that have no trade regulations imposed on those type of goods. There we go. More taxes. Less debt. And the newspapers reign to put a lid on alcohol consumption. Luxury is now taxable. The Assembly has signed an amendment known as Fair Luxury Tax Act. Bold Choice seeks to impose a tax hike on personal items, including jewelry, coats, and cars. Let's see. Is the hard reality we are facing under the Rain administration, as they are determined to steal your hard-earned money out from under you. Not steal your money, but we are going to make money off what you spend of your own free will. So we're not stealing money from you. We're just taking our cut of what you spend. It's an emergency call on the escalating situation. Let's go into that. I was woken up in the middle of the night by a call from the Ministry of Defense. Due to the sensitivity of the information, I had to be urgently briefed in person. I put on my clothes as fast as I could. I rushed downstairs and opened the door. Serge was waiting for me. Mr. President, this way to the car, please. We got into the car and made our way to the Ministry of Defense building without a word. I arrived and was directed downstairs. I came to a set of large doors and quickly read the sign above them. The sign read War Room. The dimly lit room was filled with cutting-edge equipment. The latest video screens, long-range radio, electronics, and other devices used for communication, presentation, and planning. The centerpiece of the room was a large round table with the coat of arms of Swordland engraved on it. David, Lucian, Vulcan, and Joseph were already deep in discussion. Mr. Lancia, I advise caution. Going to war won't help anybody. We must maintain peace in Sordland and eastern Marcopa at all costs. What do you expect us to do? Sit down and do nothing? They're testing us. We must respond immediately. Otherwise they will think we are weak. What's going on here? Mr. President, thank you for coming in at this late hour. There is a situation. Vulcan, please go ahead and provide your report. Mr. President, approximately 20 minutes ago, Rumberg downed one of our planes with anti-aircraft fire from the ground. The pilot was declared KIA. The last recorded position of the plane was inside Sordish airspace. Oh shit. That is not good. General Kruger, I mean no offense, but are we absolutely sure that is the case? Are you sure this happened within our borders? No offense taken. Here are the locations on the map and the report from the airbase. He pointed to several markers on the map. To answer your question, yes, we are absolutely sure. You can see here on the map that the plane was downed approximately 10 kilometers inside our border. We have calculated the trajectory of the gunfire, and they started firing when our plane was within our border. The plane was down near Haljan. What should we do now? We need to open diplomatic channels to start an official investigation. Most importantly, we need to remain calm. We must maintain peace. I agree, they're trying to lure us into their trap. We have enough military power to contest against this violation of international law. An eye for an eye. That's what we need to do. We should attack and down one of their planes in retaliation. We can't look weak. If we appear weak, they will jump on the opportunity. We must order a military retaliation immediately. I agree with the General. Mr. President, our army is ready to do whatever it takes to protect Sordland. Gentlemen, before it comes to that point, we can prevent further bloodshed by using diplomacy. The room fell silent before Joseph finally spoke up. Mr. President, what are your orders? Holy shit. So this is the choice between going to war and... well, let's start the Sordish war machine and prepare to invade Rumberg. They will pay for their crimes. I'm really not sure that's the best thing to do. An eye for an eye. We will retaliate with equal force to display our strength. Sordland can't afford to look weak. We will approach this diplomatically and try to de-escalate the situation by any means necessary. No one wants war. 2 and 3 are both valid. An eye for an eye. That's the choice of a lifetime here. War and peace. We can't really just let them shoot down one of our planes and not do anything about it, but I don't know if I want my country to go to war just yet. Oh, what does Lucian say? They're trying to lure us into their trap. What to do? This is one of the actual hard decisions of this. This is going to affect the story drastically and how things play out, so I am going to pause here and take a second to think about it. Okay, so I've thought about it a little bit, and I had to go in and look at what our alliances are right now. The Republic of Sordland and the Republic of Lesbia agreed to mutual protection and support in case of crisis that has not been identified in advance. The Organization for Marcopian Account. Okay. Alliance of Nations is a global organization that maintains peace, security, and cooperation among nations. So if we do choose to retaliate, hopefully we can rely on our alliance with Lesbia. I still haven't made up my mind. I'm leaning towards 2 wrongs don't make a right, but I'm also worried that if we appear weak, they're going to screw with us even more. And at some point, it's going to come to war anyway. I'm going to go with the eye for an eye option. Very well. There is to be retaliation. We need to be extremely careful. They will seek every opportunity to blame us for it. We can't further escalate the situation and destabilize the region. We need to prevent a war at all costs. I am saying this as a man who has lived through too many years of war. We're not the ones who escalated the situation. They were first. Mr. President, I assure you they won't dare attack us for that. They know that we are far superior, but I don't. I don't think we are. This will send a strong message. I will send word for the start of a military operation. Our target will be their warplanes at an airbase near the border. I still think a peaceful solution would be more beneficial, but of course I don't have the military experience and insight Mr. Lancia has. I will begin my task immediately, Mr. President. If you'll excuse me now, I must talk to the military command to relay the orders. Before he left the room, he saluted. I will bring the paperwork. Joseph returned with the paperwork for the order and showed me where to sign. Okay. Here we are. Now that the paperwork is done, I have an idea, Mr. President. I think we should hold a military parade to display our strength. What are we, fucking North Korea? I'm with Mr. Lancia on this one. This should work well as a deterrent, and it will come in handy as a tool to de-escalate the situation. That's a good idea. Okay. Simple and effective without causing any ruckus. Military parade. That's all, Mr. President. I will keep you updated on the situation. For now, have a good night's sleep. You will need it. I couldn't sleep at all that night. Okay. Full Sword Post. Swordish plane shot down. A Swordish airplane has been shot down by Rumburgian anti-aircraft guns allegedly for violating Rumburgian airspace. Government officials said the airplane was shot inside the airspace of Swordland. Our plane was shot down when it was flying near Haljan over the territory of Swordland by an anti-aircraft missile. Our pilot did not threaten Rumburg in any way, said Joseph Lancia, the Minister of Defense. Despite the revealed evidence from Swordish officials, the Queen of Rumburg, Beatrice Livingston, had the guts to claim that our plane was shot for violating their airspace. This is truly a heinous act purposefully done by our rivals in the north. This tragic event will have severe consequences for the Swordland-Rumburg relationship, especially when we start shooting them down. A lone Rumburgian warplane violated our airspace by entering the territory of Swordland for 2 minutes and left after issuing a radio message, which was what? That'd be good to know. Whole Sword. Urgent meeting on potential alliances in the White Room. I think I'm going to call this episode to a close right here before we get into the meeting of potential alliances. This story could take a turn for the worse going forward. If you have experience with the game, any tips or advice in the comments would be greatly appreciated. If you liked the episode, hit that like button. It'll help the channel and the series out a little bit. If you want to come along through the rest of this playthrough, the For the People playthrough, and see how we do, hit the subscribe and you can join us. I'm planning on doing a couple of other playthroughs of different nature on this game sometime in the future after this one finishes, so if you're interested in coming along for that, then you are more than welcome, and I would love to have you. J76NY saying thank you very much for watching, and have yourself a very good day.